The year was 4387. The giant warship, Vathric Ascendancy, floated in deep space like a massive silver fish. It was the flagship of the Zarathi Galactic Empire. For 60,000 years this empire had ruled most of the known galaxy. They had conquered thousands of worlds. They had made hundreds of alien species bow down to them. No one had ever stood against them, and one Grand Admiral Vessis Karu Thalmor stood on the command deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. He was a tall reptilian creature with green scales and sharp yellow eyes. His uniform was covered in medals from 100 battles. He had served the Empire for over 200 years. He was respected, feared, and completely sure of himself. "Report," he said in a calm voice. His deep voice filled the command deck. A young officer named Lieutenant Maressa stepped forward. She was from a smaller alien species with soft blue skin and 4 arms. She held a glowing data pad in her upper hands. "Grand Admiral, all sectors report normal activity," she said. "But there is something strange in the old archives. I found it this morning." Thalmor turned to look at her. "Strange how?" Maressa tapped her data pad. A holographic image appeared in the air. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. "This is Sol 3, Grand Admiral. Our scouts surveyed this system 400 years ago. The species living there was called humans, or Terrans. They were marked as primitive, pre-warp, not worth our time." The Grand Admiral gave a small laugh. 400 years ago. Why are you showing me this now?" "Lieutenant, because something is wrong, sir," Maressa said carefully. "We have sent 3 scout drones through that region in the past 6 months. None of them have come back. No signals. No data. Nothing." Thalmor frowned. His scales darkened slightly, which was a sign of thinking. Scout drones were not expensive, but they rarely failed. 3 failures in one region was unusual. "What does the file say about these humans?" he asked. Maressa read from her pad. "They lived on one planet. They had just split the atom. They had simple rockets. They fought each other all the time in small wars. The survey team marked them as level 2 primitives. They said humans would probably destroy themselves within 200 years. Then they are likely dead," Thalmor said with a shrug. "That system is empty now. The drones probably hit an asteroid field or a solar storm." "Maybe, sir," Maressa said, "but the area around Sol 3 is also near some dangerous star systems. Merchant ships avoid that whole region. We have no recent information about it at all." Captain Orenvax, a senior officer standing nearby, spoke up. He was also a Zarathi, slightly younger than the Grand Admiral. "Grand Admiral, perhaps I could take a small fleet to investigate. 3 cruisers should be enough. We can map the area again and see what happened to our drones." Thalmor thought about it for a moment. He did not want to waste resources on such a small matter. But 3 missing drones was a loose thread, and the Empire did not like loose threads. The Empire liked everything to be neat and organized. "Very well," he said. "Take 3 cruisers. Go to Sol 3. Survey the system. If the humans are still alive, assess their technology level. If they have become a problem, deal with them. If they are dead, map the area and come home." "Yes, Grand Admiral," Orenvax said. He saluted and left the deck. Maressa stayed behind. She still looked worried. Grand Admiral. May I say something? Speak. 400 years is a long time, sir. Some species grow very fast. The Kralvish went from primitive to space capable in only 300 years. What if the humans? Thalmer raised a clawed hand to stop her. Lieutenant, the Kralvish were in unusual case. Most primitive species either die out or stay primitive for thousands of years. The humans were fighting each other with chemical weapons when we found them. They were dirty, violent, and stupid. They are not a threat. They have probably killed themselves by now. Marissa bowed her head. Yes, Grand Admiral. I am sorry for wasting your time. Not a waste, Thalmer said, his voice softening. You noticed something strange and you reported it. That is good work. But do not worry about primitives. Our empire has faced real threats: the Void Swarms, the Iron Collective, the Dark Ones. These are the things that matter. A tiny species on one little planet is nothing. Marissa nodded and left. But as she walked back to her station, she felt something cold in her stomach. She could not explain it. Something about those missing drones bothered her. Something about the silence from that region felt wrong. Meanwhile, Captain Orenvax prepared his 3 cruisers for the mission. The Stonefang, the Bladeheart, and the Iron Sun were fine warships. Each one carried 500 soldiers and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. The crews laughed as they boarded. They joked about what funny primitive tools the humans might have invented. Maybe steam engines, maybe simple computers. Maybe they were still throwing rocks at each other. Remember, one soldier said with a grin, do not laugh at their weapons, it might hurt their feelings. I will try to be serious, another soldier replied. But if they show me a metal sword, I might cry from laughing. The 3 cruisers lit up their engines and jumped into subspace. They disappeared in a flash of blue light. The journey to Sol 3 would take about 2 days. Back on the Vathric Ascendancy, Grand Admiral Thalmer returned to his private chamber. He poured himself a glass of warm spiced wine. He looked out at the stars through his large window. The Empire was peaceful. The Empire was strong. The Empire would rule forever. He did not know that in 2 days everything would change. He did not know that humans do not stay primitive. He did not know that 400 years of silence was not silence at all. It was preparation. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, the humans had been watching. They had been listening. They had been learning. And they had been building. And now the Empire was sending 3 ships right into their home. The Grand Admiral took a slow sip of his wine and smiled. Tomorrow would be just another day. Nothing important would happen. He was very, very wrong. 2 days later, the 3 Zarathi cruisers came out of subspace near the edge of the Sol system. The blue light of the jump faded, and the ships floated silently in the darkness. Captain Orenvax stood on the command deck of the Stonefang, his arms folded behind his back. He expected to see an empty system with maybe a few small human satellites. Instead, he saw nothing. Sensors, he said. Give me a full scan of the system. Sensor officer, a young Zarathi named Keleth, tapped his controls. His claws moved fast over the panel. Then he stopped. He tapped again. Then he looked up with wide eyes. Captain, our sensors cannot see anything, Keleth said. His voice was shaky. There is some kind of interference. Field, it covers the entire system. I can see our own ships, but I cannot see any planets. I cannot see the sun. I cannot even see the basic shape of the system. Orenvax felt a cold feeling run through his scales. That is impossible. A sun is a very big thing. You cannot hide a sun, but someone has hidden it. Captain Keleth said, or maybe they have moved things, or maybe they are blocking our sensors with technology. I do not understand. The captain walked over to the main view screen. Outside, space looked strange. The stars in the distance were visible, but the Sol system itself was like a black curtain. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. Contact the Bladeheart and the Iron Sun, Orenvax ordered. Ask them if they see the same thing. A minute later, the communications officer replied, Captain, both ships report the same problem. None of them can see into the system. Sensors are useless. Orenvax thought quickly. He could turn back now. He could report this to the Grand Admiral, but that would look weak. Zarathi captain did not run from empty space. A Zarathi captain did not fear shadows. We will move in slowly, he decided. All ships advance at 1/4 speed, weapons ready, shields up. The 3 cruisers moved forward. Like cautious hunters, they crossed into the strange darkness. The interference grew stronger. Even their communications became scratchy. Suddenly, every speaker on every ship came alive at the same time. A voice spoke. It was calm, clear, and polite, and most shocking of all, it spoke in perfect galactic standard, the official language of the Zarathi Empire. Attention, Zarathi vessels, you have entered the sovereign space of the Terran Coalition. Please identify yourselves within 90 seconds. Failure to comply will be considered a hostile action. Orenvax froze. His mouth hung open. His scales turned a pale green, which was the Zarathi color of fear. How, he whispered, how do they know our language? Keleth was also frozen. Captain, this is impossible. The humans were primitive. They could not have learned galactic standard. That language is only taught inside Empire. Someone taught them, Orenvac said slowly. Or they learned it themselves, but how? The voice spoke again. 60 seconds remaining. Please identify yourselves. Orenvac tried to think like a soldier. He was still a captain of the Zarathi Empire. He would not panic. He would not show weakness to these primitives. Open a channel, he ordered. Channel open, Captain. Orenvac cleared his throat. This is Captain Orenvac of the Zarathi Imperial Navy. We are here on a peaceful survey mission. We mean no harm. We simply wish to. He never finished his sentence. There was no flash. There was no explosion. There was no warning at all. The Iron Sun, one of his 3 cruisers, simply disappeared. One moment it was there, floating beside his ship. The next moment it was gone. No wreckage, no debris, no fire, no bodies, nothing. 500 soldiers gone, a warship the size of a small mountain gone. Orenvac could not speak. His mind refused to believe what his eyes had seen. Captain, Keleth cried out. The Iron Sun is gone. I cannot detect any wreckage. There is no energy signature. It is like the ship never existed. That is not possible, Orenvac whispered. That is not possible. That is not possible, the voice spoke again. This time it sounded slightly less polite. That was a warning. Identify yourselves and leave immediately, or the next ship will also be removed. Orenvac felt something he had never felt before in his entire military career. He felt true, deep, cold fear. This was not an enemy he understood. This was something else. This was something far beyond his knowledge. All ships, he shouted. Full reverse jump. To subspace immediately. Go, go, go. The two remaining cruisers turned and fired up their engines. They jumped into subspace without even setting proper coordinates. It was a dangerous thing to do. A bad jump could send a ship into the heart of a star or into an empty region of space with no way home. But Orenvac did not care. He had to get away. The jump was rough. The stone fang shook violently. Alarms screamed. Several systems broke down. But somehow they came out of subspace, near the edge of Imperial territory. Bladeheart came out beside them, damaged, but alive. Orenvac collapsed into his command chair. His whole body was shaking. He could still see it in his mind, the iron sun disappearing like a candle being blown out. 500 of his brothers and sisters gone forever. Captain Kelleth said softly, "Captain, we need to report this." Orenvac nodded slowly. Yes, yes, we need to report this. Open a channel to the Vathric Ascendancy. Priority urgent. A few minutes later, the face of Grand Admiral Thalmor appeared on the screen. He looked annoyed at being disturbed. Captain Orenvac, report. Orenvac tried to speak, but his mouth was dry. He tried again. Grand Admiral, he said, his voice breaking, we have lost the Iron Sun today. 500 soldiers are dead. The humans killed them. Thalmor's face changed. His yellow eyes grew sharp. What do you mean the humans killed them? How? With what weapon? I do not know, Grand Admiral. The ship just disappeared. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. Captain, calm yourself. Explain clearly. Orenvac took a deep breath. Then he said the words that would shake the Zarathi Empire to its core. Grand Admiral, they spoke our language. They knew our ship designs. They knew our tactics. They told us to leave. They have been watching us. They have been watching us for a very long time. Thalmor was silent for a long moment. His scales darkened. His claws gripped the arms of his chair. How long? He finally asked. I do not know, sir. Maybe many years, maybe centuries. Come home, Captain. Thalmor said quietly. Come home immediately. We have much to discuss. The screen went dark. Orenvac sat in silence. Outside the window the stars looked the same as they always had. But everything had changed. The Empire was no longer alone, and the humans were not primitives anymore. The Imperial Council Chamber was the largest meeting room in the entire Zarathi Empire. It was built inside a hollow moon that orbited the Zarathi homeworld. The walls were made of black stone that sparkled, with tiny lights like stars trapped in rock. A huge round table sat in the center of the chamber. Around this table, the leaders of the Empire gathered. There were 12 vassal species who served under the Zarathi. Each one sent a representative to the council. There were the tall and thin Draco with their long fingers and silver eyes. There were the short and round Gulmpi with their thick fur and loud voices. There were the floating Zypherins who used anti-gravity belts to move around. And many more. All of them looked worried, all of them had heard the rumors. Grand Admiral Thalmor stood at the head of the table. Beside him stood Captain Orenvac, who had barely slept in the past 3 days. His scales were still pale. His eyes were tired and haunted. The Empire's chief scientist, Professor Kelvin, also stood nearby. He was an old Zarathi with gray scales and thick glasses. My fellow leaders, Thalmor began. His deep voice echoed in the chamber. 3 days ago we sent 3 warships to a small backwater system called Sol. 3. Only 2 ships returned. The third was destroyed by a weapon we cannot understand, by a species we thought was primitive. The council erupted in shouting. Several species began talking at once. The Gompi representative banged his fists on the table. The Dracal speaker stood up in anger. Impossible, shouted the Dracal. No primitive species can destroy a Zarathi warship. They are not primitives anymore, Orenvac said quietly. His voice was rough. Whatever they were 400 years ago, they are not that now. Silence. Thalmor roared. The chamber went quiet. Captain Orenvac will speak. Listen to him. Orenvac told the whole story. He told them about the strain interference field. He told them about the voice that spoke perfect galactic standard. He told them how the Iron Sun vanished in a single moment. He told them that the humans had been watching the Empire for a long time, maybe hundreds of years. When he was done, the chamber was silent. Then Professor Kelvin stepped forward. He placed a data pad on the table. A holographic image appeared above it. It showed a blue and green planet Earth. I have been studying humans for the past 3 days, the old professor said. I went back into the original survey, records from 4 centuries ago, and I have found something very troubling. He changed the image. Now it showed pictures of humans. Some were fighting each other with guns. Some were building tall buildings. Some were flying in crude airplanes. When our survey team visited Earth, they wrote a very short report. They called humans primitive. They said humans were not worth studying. But they missed something important. They missed the pattern. What pattern? Asked the Zephyrin representative. Kelvin pulled up another image. It was a graph showing human technology over time. The line on the graph went up slowly for thousands of years. Then in the last 200 years the line went up sharply. It went almost straight up. Humans are unusual, Kelvin explained. Most species improve slowly and steadily. Humans improve in bursts. They can go from using stone tools to splitting the atom in only 10,000 years. That is incredibly fast. Our own species took over 100,000 years to reach the same point. But why? Asked a Gompi leader. Why do they grow so fast? Kelvin's face grew serious. Because their homeworld is a nightmare. Earth has very strong gravity. It has storms that can destroy cities. It has earthquakes. It has volcanoes. It has thousands of diseases. And worst of all, it has many large predators that want to eat humans. For millions of years, humans had to fight just to survive. He changed the image again. Now it showed ancient humans covered in fur and mud fighting with simple spears against huge animals. Our species evolved on a safe world. We had few predators. We had stable weather. We had plenty of food, so we became calm and logical. But humans had to fight everything. They had to fight the weather. They had to fight the animals. They had to fight diseases. And when they ran out of things to fight, they started fighting each other. That sounds terrible, said they. Draco. How did they survive? By becoming better at fighting, Kelvin said. By becoming smarter. By inventing better weapons. By never stopping. You see, my friends, humans have a trait that almost no other species in the galaxy has. Even during peaceful times, they keep improving their weapons. They do this for fun. They do it as a hobby. They do it because they cannot stop. The council members looked at each other in horror. So even when they do not need new weapons, the Zixifran whispered, they build them anyway. Kelvin finished. Just in case. Always in case. Thalmor spoke now. His voice was heavy. 400 years ago, humans were still fighting small wars with each other. They had just learned to split the atom. Now, imagine 400 years of humans improving weapons for fun. Imagine what they have built. Chamber was silent. Everyone understood now. Everyone was afraid. Suddenly, a young officer ran into the chamber. Her face was pale. She held a data pad in her shaking hands. Grand Admiral, she cried. Grand Admiral, I have urgent news. Speak, officer. A single human warship has left their space. It is flying toward our frontier. It is moving at a speed that our scientists say is physically impossible. Nothing should move that fast, but it is moving that fast. Thalmor's eyes narrowed. Is it trying to hide? No, Grand Admiral, that is the strange part. It is flying in a straight line. It is not trying to hide. It is not using any stealth technology. It is simply coming at us, and it does not answer our hails. The Grand Admiral stood tall. His warrior training took over. How much time until it reaches our border? Less than 2 hours. Grand Admiral. Thalmor turned to the council. We must act. I will mobilize the 7th Armada, 200 of our best warships. We will meet this single human vessel at the frontier. We will see what it wants, and if it is hostile, we will destroy it. 200 ships against one, asked the Galpi leader. That seems like too much. After what happened to the Iron Sun, Thalmor said coldly. There is no such thing as too much. The council agreed. The 7th Armada was called. 200 mighty warships gathered at the Imperial frontier. They formed a massive wall of metal and weapons. Nothing could pass through such a defense. Nothing ever had. Thalmor himself went with the fleet. He stood on the command deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. Orenvax was beside him. Lieutenant Merska was also there, now promoted for her early warning about the humans. She watched the sensors with fear in her blue eyes. Then she saw it. A tiny dot on the long-range sensors. It was growing closer very fast. Grand Admiral, she said softly. The human ship is here. The main view screen showed the approaching vessel. It was sleek and dark. It was smaller than a Zarathi cruiser, but its shape was strange and sharp. Strange bumps and lines covered its hull. These were weapons, but they were weapons of a type no one in the Armada recognized. The tactical officer suddenly gasped. His claws scraped against his console. Grand Admiral, impossible. That's a human warship, and it's locking targets. It's locking targets on every ship in our fleet at the same time, all 200 of them. Thalmor's mouth went dry. He gripped the arms of his command chair. The moment had come. The galaxy was about to change forever. The human warship stopped at the edge of weapon range. It just floated there, silent and still. 200 Zarathi battleships faced it in a massive wall of metal. Weapons were hot, shields were up, every soldier was ready to fight, and yet the human ship did nothing. Grand Admiral, should we fire? Asked the tactical officer. Not yet, Thalmor said. His voice was steady, but inside he was uncertain. Wait. For almost a full minute the two sides stared at each other across the black void of space. Then suddenly, every screen in the armada lit up at the same time. A face appeared. It was a human face. The human was a female. She had short dark hair and calm brown eyes. Her skin was a light brown color. She wore a black and gray uniform with silver marks on the shoulders. Behind her, a clean and simple command deck could be seen. Other humans worked at their stations. Quiet and focused, the human spoke. Her voice was soft but very confident, and she spoke not just in Galactic standard, but in the special high court dialect of the Zarathi. This was the most formal way to speak. It was a dialect used only by emperors, nobles, and the highest military leaders. It was almost never taught to outsiders. Grand Admiral Vessis Karu Thalmor, she said, I am Captain Sarah Chen of the Terran Coalition Navy. I command the vessel TCS Prometheus. Unbound, I speak on behalf of the people of Earth and of humanity's many colonies across the stars. Thank you for coming to meet me. Thalmor was stunned. She knew his full name. She knew his rank. She spoke his native high language with perfect skill. This was not possible. This should not be possible, Captain Chen, he said carefully. How do you know who I am? Sarah Chen gave a small smile. It was a polite smile, not a cruel one. Grand Admiral, humanity has been aware of the Zarathi Empire for 390 years. We have studied your language, we have studied your history, we have studied your military doctrine, your political system, and your technology. We know a great deal about you, but we apologize for never introducing ourselves until now. 390 years, whispered Lieutenant Merska beside him. Yes, Chen continued. Shortly after your survey team visited Earth, we realized we were not alone in the galaxy. One of your scout probes crashed on our moon. We recovered it, we studied it. It took us many decades, but we learned from it, and we decided as a species to stay hidden until we were ready to speak as equals. Thalmor's mind raced. Why did you not contact us earlier? Because we did not want to be conquered, Chen said simply. We watch what the Empire does to primitive species. You assimilate them. You make them your vassals. You take their culture, their resources, their freedom. We did not want that for ourselves, so we waited. We learned, we built, and now you are ready. Now we are ready. Thalmor straightened his back. He had to regain control of this conversation. He was a Grand Admiral of the Zarathi Empire. He would not be spoken to this way by a single human captain. Captain Chen, he said in a firm voice. You have entered space claimed by the Empire. You have destroyed one of our ships. You have threatened our fleet. These are acts of war. I demand that you stand down. Your vessel, submit to inspection, surrender your command. If you do this, we may spare the lives Of your crew, Sarah Chen did not look afraid. She did not even look annoyed. She just looked at him with those calm brown eyes. Grand Admiral, she said, I was hoping we could avoid this part. But I understand that you need proof, so let me show you something. Please turn your sensors to the third moon of the gas giant in the Kelver system. It is an empty moon. No one lives there, no ships are nearby. Thalmer frowned. The Kelver system was 3 light minutes away from his current position. That meant any light or signal from there would take 3 minutes to reach his ship. It was far away. Sensor officer, he said. Do as she says. Focus on the Kelver system. The sensor screens changed. Soon they showed a small gray, lifeless moon floating beside a large, orange gas giant. Now watch, Chen said. She did not push any button that Thalmer could see. She did not give any order. She just nodded slightly to someone off screen, and the moon broke. It did not explode. There was no fire. There was no flash. The moon simply cracked into perfectly smooth pieces, like a piece of fruit being cut by a knife. The pieces began to drift apart in slow motion. It was almost beautiful. It was also absolutely terrifying. That is not possible, said Professor Kelvin, who was watching the feed from the Imperial capital. His voice came through the command deck speakers. Grand Admiral, that weapon hit the moon before the sensor data could reach us. The weapon moved faster than light, faster than causality. That should be impossible. That breaks the basic laws of physics. Yes, it does, Chen said calmly. We had to rewrite some physics to make it work. It took us about 80 years. Thalmer could not speak for several seconds. His throat felt tight. His claws felt numb. Sarah Chen continued in her soft, polite voice. Grand Admiral, I want to be very clear with you. Right now my ship has firing solutions locked on every single one of your 200 warships. I can destroy your entire fleet in less than 1 second. I also have firing solutions locked on your Imperial capital world. I can destroy it from here 3 sectors away, and I am sorry to say I also have a solution locked on your personal estate on your home world. Your family is there, I believe. Thalmer felt the blood drain from his scales. His wife, his daughters, his young grandson, all at the mercy of this one human ship. Yes, he whispered, I have no intention of harming them, Chen said quickly. I tell you this only so you understand my position. I am one captain on one ship. Humanity has many more ships, many more, and many of them are bigger and more powerful than mine. I am not here to threaten you, Grand Admiral. I am here to prevent a war, because if we go to war, the Terran coalition will win. But millions of innocent people on both sides will die. I do not want that, do you? Thalmer closed his eyes. Every instinct in his body told him to fight, to order his fleet to fire, to die as a warrior rather than surrender. But he was not a young fool. He was an old general, and an old general knows when a battle cannot be won. No, he said quietly. I do not want that. Good, Chen said. Her voice became warmer. Then let us talk, Grand Admiral, not as enemies but as equals. The Terran coalition has no interest in conquering the Zarathi Empire. We do not want your worlds. We do not want your people. We do not want to rule you. We only want one thing. We want to be left alone. We Want to live our lives in peace. We want to explore the galaxy as free people. And what do you offer in return, Thalmor? Asked. Peace, Chen said. A treaty of mutual respect, equal standing in all galactic matters, trade if you want it, science sharing if you want it, friendship if you want it, but most of all Grand Admiral safety, for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, for all the species of your empire. If you accept peace, humanity will never be your enemy. The Grand Admiral looked at the sleek dark ship on his view screen. One ship had broken everything he thought he knew about the galaxy. I will need time to speak with my council, he said. Of course, Chen replied. Take all the time you need. I will wait right here. But Grand Admiral, please choose wisely. The connection closed. Thalmor stood in silence. His 200 warships suddenly felt very, very small. The council meeting that followed was the shortest in Zarathi history. It lasted only 20 minutes. There was really nothing to discuss. The humans could destroy them. The humans had chosen not to. The humans were offering peace. There was only one sensible answer. The Empire accepted the treaty. 3 weeks later, a peace ceremony was held on a neutral space station in deep space. The station was called Harmony Point. It had been built quickly by both sides as a shared meeting place. It was beautiful. The Zarathi had built one half using their smooth silver metal. The humans had built the other half using their sharp black metal. Where the two styles met in the middle, the contrast looked strange but also interesting. Representatives came from all across the galaxy, not just the Zarathi Empire and the Terran Coalition, but also many other species. Some of them had been silent vassals of the Empire for thousands of years. They came to see this historic moment with their own eyes. Grand Admiral Thalmor stood in the center of the main hall. He wore his finest uniform. Every medal he had ever earned shone on his chest. Beside him stood Captain Sarah Chen. She also wore a formal uniform, black with silver marks. She looked small next to the tall Zarathi, but her eyes were steady and calm. The two leaders signed the treaty with traditional pens on a special document. Then they shook hands. It was the first time in the long history of the galaxy that a human and a Zarathi had shaken hands as equals. Lieutenant Merska, now promoted to commander, watched from nearby. She remembered the morning when she first showed the Grand Admiral those missing drone reports. That felt like a lifetime ago. She had known something was wrong. She had just never imagined this. In the months that followed the treaty, humanity slowly stepped out of its long hiding. Human ships began to travel the galactic trade lanes. Human ambassadors set up offices on Zarathi worlds. Human scientists worked together with Zarathi researchers on shared projects, and the galaxy began to learn who these humans really were. The first surprise was that the Terran Coalition was not a single empire. It was not even a single nation. It was a loose union of thousands of human colonies spread across many star systems. Each colony had its own government. Each one had its own culture. Some were democracies, some were not. They argued with each other often. They traded with each other sometimes. They even had small disagreements. But when it came to outside threats, they always stood together. That was the one rule humanity had learned from its long history on Earth. Fight each other if you must, but never let outsiders divide you. The second surprise was that humans were not warlike in their daily lives. Everyone had expected humans to be aggressive and rude. Instead, they were curious. They loved to explore new places. They loved to learn new languages. They loved to eat new foods. They laughed often. They told jokes, many of which the Zarathi did not understand at first. They wrote songs and poems. They made paintings and movies. They invited alien ambassadors to their homes for dinner. A young Galpi diplomat wrote a report for her government that became famous across the galaxy. She wrote, "The humans are confusing. They can destroy a moon with a thought. But they cry when their dogs die. They have weapons beyond our understanding. But they also have a tradition where they give children sweet food on a certain day of the year. They are both terrifying and kind. I do not know what to make of them, but I like them." The third surprise, however, was the most important one, and it was a surprise that reminded everyone why humanity had been feared. About 6 months after the treaty, a Zarathi admiral named Grathkol decided he did not accept the new peace. He was an old, proud warrior who could not stand the idea of humans as equals. He gathered a small fleet of loyal ships. He decided to attack a small vassal planet that had recently petitioned the Terran coalition for protection. He wanted to show the galaxy that the Empire was still strong, that humans could be beaten. And GT clear his throat. And GT that the old ways still mattered. His attack lasted less than 10 minutes. Grathkol's fleet came out of subspace near the small planet. They prepared to open fire. Before they could launch a single weapon, every ship in his fleet simply vanished, just like the Iron Sun had vanished months before. No wreckage, no bodies, no explosion. Just empty space where a fleet of rebel warships had been. There was no warning. There was no conversation. There was no mercy. The message was clear. Peace with humanity was real. But breaking that peace had a price. And the price was everything. After that day, no one in the galaxy ever tested human patience. Again, 2 years after the treaty, Grand Admiral Thalmor stood on the observation deck of the Vathric Ascendancy. He was watching a convoy of Terran ships pass by. They were delivering medicine to a vassal world that had suffered a plague. Humans and Zarathi doctors were working together to save lives. It was a strange sight. It was also a beautiful one. Commander Merska joined him at the window. She had become his trusted advisor. She was the only person who had seen that danger coming. "Grand Admiral," she said softly, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Commander, what do you think humanity really is? You have had many meetings with them. Now, you understand them better than most." Thalmor was silent for a long time. He looked out at the stars that no longer belonged only to his empire. He thought about the 60,000 years of Zarathi history. He thought about all the wars, all the conquests, all the pride. And then he thought about 400 years of silence from a small blue planet in a corner of the galaxy. "Commander," he said, "at last, our empire spent 60,000 years becoming strong. We conquered, we ruled, we thought we were the greatest species in the galaxy. We thought no one could ever match us. And we were right for a very long time." He paused. His old scales caught the light from the stars, and then in only 400 years, a species of small primates from a single, fragile world surpassed us completely. They did not do it through conquest. They did not do it through ruling others. They did it by being left alone. They did it by refusing to accept that they were primitive. They did it by building weapons for fun. Even when there was no war, they did it by never ever being satisfied. So what? Are they? Grand Admiral Thalmer gave a small tired smile. They are a lesson, Commander. They are a lesson to every species in the galaxy. They are a reminder that you should never judge a species by what they are today, because you do not know what they can become tomorrow. Mariska nodded slowly, and also Thalmer added quietly, they are a warning. Humanity simply wanted to be left alone. That was all they ever wanted, and the galaxy in its pride almost refused to let them have that simple wish. We almost brought war on ourselves, because we could not imagine that a small species might deserve peace. He turned away from the window. We were fortunate, Commander. We were very fortunate that humans are kind. Another species with their power might have destroyed us all. But humans chose peace. We must never forget that. We must teach our children and our grandchildren and every future generation to respect this peace, because the day we break it is the day the galaxy ends. Mariska looked out at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there far away was a small blue planet called Earth. 400 years ago, it had been ignored, dismissed, forgotten. Now it was the center of a new galactic age. The humans were out there exploring, building, improving, always improving, never stopping, and the galaxy finally had learned to let them be.